It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. We're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Yes. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. We are on the road. I'm on the road, so I'm not in the studio. And I was planning on just not doing a show for the rest of the week, which would have been ideal, to be honest. To not have to do a show for 3 days sounds like a vacation. Sounds like a privilege. But I've been on the road for a while, and I figured I couldn't do that to you. So I'm going to be doing a show tonight, tomorrow, on the road. Thursday, I will be on InfoWars in the morning, and then I'll be back in the studio at night. So you get a show. You get basically a full week. We're going to be doing shows. This is the first time I've done a show on the road in, I think, almost 3 years. And I don't even know where to look. Am I looking in the camera right now? You have to tell me how it sounds because my audio might be messed up. But we're on the road. It's something about this camera. What is it about this MacBook camera? It's just doing things to me. I feel like I do when I was in LA. I look good on this camera. Why don't I look this good on my camera at home? I should do a show on the laptop all the time. Anyway, we got a great show for you tonight. Our featured story, we're going to be talking all about this group chat leak. And, look, it's not the biggest story ever, but it's a slow news day. The $100 a month club says I'm doing a great job. Thank you very much. Now stop tagging me, please. But our featured story, we're talking all about this young Republican group chat leak. It's a very slow news day, but it is sort of interesting because this is happening in the context of everybody talking about how cancel culture is over. And everyone recognizes we're in a new ecosystem right now, sort of unprecedented, new territory. And by that, I mean everybody is unbanned on Twitter. It seems that free speech is increasing, if it's not all the way restored, on Meta, Google, X. And cancel culture has certainly receded with the censorship. And I never thought I'd see it move in that direction ever. And so people have been talking a lot. There's been much said about how maybe we're in a post-cancel culture era. And there have been prominent examples of this. Big Balls, who was at the White House, and some of the crew that Elon Musk brought in for Doge, these guys got canceled, or there was an attempted cancellation for things they had said on the internet. And it seemed that there was an intercession almost from Musk, Vance, other elements inside the administration to prevent them from being fired. And ordinarily, that's how it works, is a Republican group chat leaks, an old Twitter alt gets found, somebody is saying something they shouldn't be saying, and they lose their job. It's a scalp. It gets aired out in Washington Post or Politico or The Hill or whatever, Daily Beast. And traditionally, this is how it works, and then those people get their lives destroyed, reputations ruined, terminated from their jobs. And that seems now to be changing. And like I said, those are a couple of prominent examples of some of the Doge kids. Now we have another instance of this, and we're kind of charting a new course here, figuring out as we go along. Some young Republicans are in a group chat. They call them YRs. And it's kind of stupid because, I don't even know how young these guys are. Young Republicans now are like 45 years old. You have like 40-year-old men like Matt Kipta are calling themselves young Republicans. I don't even know what that means anymore. The guy's 39 or something. But in any case, they're in a group chat and hundreds of messages leak, and it's a right-wing group chat. So it's exactly what you would expect. And what's interesting now is that it seems like a lot of people are disavowing them. The Young Republican Club disavowed them. They may be fired from their jobs. But other people, surprisingly, are now defending them, including prominently Matt Walsh, J.D. Vance, among others. And so it looks like this is yet another watershed moment, or you could say a potential data point in this new free speech ecosystem. So that's why it's somewhat relevant. We'll talk a little bit about the scandal tonight. We'll read through some of what was said. It's pretty funny, actually. I feel like my group chat is far worse, though. If my group chat ever leaks, it's over for me. You think what I say on the show is bad. It's not great in the group chat. But anyway, so we'll read through the Politico article, some pretty good stuff. We'll talk about the reaction. Have to say, I've been pleasantly surprised from Vance. And Vance is my number one op, and I have major problems with him. But he has been remarkably consistent on this across the board. For me, when I was banned on Twitter, he defended me. For Big Balls or whoever it was in that. I don't think it was Big Balls. It was another one of those guys. His name starts with a K. I forget it. But he defended that guy when he got canceled. And now he's defending these young Republicans. And I never thought I'd see it ever. But Republicans are finally learning to play the whatabout game, the whataboutism game. And I think that's absolutely overdue. And of course, I'm referring to the fact that a month ago, you had people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. You've got Democrats running for office that want to kill Republicans. And apparently that's fine. But then a Republican group chat gets leaked and it's young white kids. They're being controversial and then they're going to get hanged. They're going to get their lives destroyed. Why would we play along with that? We're in power. They should not be fired. We'll also talk about Gavin Wax's role in it. I've heard some rumors that he was responsible for the leak. And I guess it's like some young Republican nonsense. It's like young Republicans fighting over committee seats and total, utter nonsense, basically like adult Model UN bullshit. And so supposedly Gavin Wax orchestrated the leak to damage some guy who took his committee assignment. And, fuck all these people, and especially Gavin Wax. And I told a lot of people, nobody that's involved, none of these guys were Groypers. I mean, I don't know these guys, but they're influenced by the Groypers. Everybody's influenced by Groypers under the age of 30. But I told some other people that I know that are peripherally connected to it, I said, dude, serves you right. Gavin Wax is hanging out with his Jewish grandma with Chuck Schumer commemorating the Holocaust, and everybody was telling me for years how based he was. And then he goes and sells out the group chat to get back at some young Republican guy because they lost the student council president election. It's totally ridiculous. So anyways, we'll talk all about that. I'll tell you what I know about it. We're also going to talk tonight about Trump's announcement on the Gaza peace plan. Not good. And we covered the Gaza peace plan, I think, on Friday or Thursday. I don't remember exactly when we did a show covering the whole deal, but as you know, I'm not optimistic about the deal. I'm glad that people are no longer dying for now, and I'm glad that it's a gesture towards peace. But as I said last week, it does not resolve the root causes of the conflict. And this is why the conflict has been simmering for decades, for generations, and it's sporadically that it will boil over. And then it goes back to its state of simmering, but it's never fully resolved. And I think that is all the peace plan does, is it just defers this part of the conflict to a later date. I think that what most likely will happen is that Israel will shift its attention to Iran and decisively confront Iran soon, and then probably revisit Gaza within a year. And I think that's the most likely outcome. I seriously doubt that this plan has the specificity, the details. I don't know that Trump has the focus or willpower to follow through on it. I don't think Netanyahu has abandoned any of his goals that have been articulated, for decades, but especially ever since the war in Gaza began. That being said, the reason I suspect this is because inside the deal, the 20-point plan, some of the points have been agreed upon. The hostage prisoner exchange, ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces to a certain periphery inside of Gaza. But the most important things, there is no agreement. And among those things are the disarmament of Hamas. Israel started the war. They didn't start the war, but their strategic objectives in the war, I should say, were to demilitarize Gaza, and specifically to remove Hamas from power, which means disarming them and then expelling them or eradicating them and ensuring that they have no future in the governance of Gaza, or really no presence in Gaza at all, and certainly not with weapons. And I heard some reports last week that Hamas had agreed to lay down their arms. I don't believe that's verified, though, or under what conditions. And so anyway, the big news today, that Trump comes out today during some ceremony and says, well, Hamas said they would lay down their arms. He said, but if they don't, I will disarm them violently. And so what does that mean? So now is the United States going to invade Gaza? We're going to now bomb Hamas ourselves? And I don't know how likely any of that is. It could be rhetoric. It could be a throwaway statement, but I don't like it. And I don't like anything about the deal. I don't like that there are 300 American personnel in Israel. There's 100 operating the two THAAD weapon systems. 200 more have been deployed to oversee the logistics of the prisoner exchange. I don't like that there are Americans there. I don't like that we now own this because Trump has intervened. And I don't like the threat, even if it's an idle threat, even if it's, like I said, a throwaway remark. If that's his typical gunboat diplomacy, the kind of madman theory, whatever you want to call it, I don't like it. So we'll talk about that too, as in the Washington Post. Should be a pretty good show. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button, smash the like button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. What else? Yeah, not much else. Kind of a slow day. I'm traveling. How do I look? I feel like I look good. I feel like this camera really, it makes my face look thinner. It makes me look whiter. Makes my eyes look greener. So I don't know if you agree. Anyway, I'm literally looking at, usually I look at the Google Docs. I'm looking at myself right now. That's why I'm getting carried away. But we're going to move on. We're going to get into the news. This will probably be a relatively shorter show. But we're going to get into our first story. We'll talk about this Politico article. I'm going to pull it up and we'll read through it. Like I said, this is from a young, and I don't know all the details. I don't know any of the people involved. I don't know the inside baseball here. I have a general idea of it. You have this group chat of YRs, young Republicans, and I guess it's just a typical conservative group chat. These are under 30, age under 30, young white men, very conservative, and it's exactly what you'd expect. Very explicit, very racial, very provocative. Somebody leaks the group chat to Politico, and they put it out, they blast everybody in it, and now they're calling for everybody to get fired. So this is a story from Politico. It says, quote, leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. They referred to black people as monkeys and the watermelon people, and mused about putting their opponents in gas chambers. They talked about raping their enemies. Who would ever do such a thing? Who would ever say such a thing? That's terrible. Imagine, I'm appalled, actually. Driving them to suicide, they lauded Republicans who they believe support slavery. William Hendricks, the Kansas YR vice chair, used the words nigga and nigga, variations of a racial slur, thanks for telling us, more than a dozen times in the chat. Bobby Walker, vice chair of New York State Young Republicans, referred to rape as, quote, epic. Peter Junta, who at the time was chair of the same organization, wrote in a message sent in June that everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. He was referring to an upcoming vote on whether he should become chair of the Young Republican National Federation, the GOP's 15,000-member political organization for Republicans between 18 and 40. So these guys are like going to be in charge of the youth. This is what I'm talking about. Like, everyone's a groyper now. I don't even know these people. I've never met these people. And I don't know that they identify as groypers. I don't believe they talked about me. If they did, I'm sure it'd be in here. But it just goes to show this is the mood of my generation. This is the mood. This is the zeitgeist of the under 25, under 30 crowd, especially for white men. It's just where they are. Anyway, it goes on. It says, he continued, I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers. did I write this? And was I in the group chat? And so these are some of the screenshots. Well, it just reiterates what was already reported here. Joe Molino previously identified himself as the general counsel for New York State Young Republicans, wrote, "Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fix the Hitler aesthetic." I don't even know what that means. "I'm ready to watch people burn now," said a woman, Annie K. Katie. That just sounds try-hard. Typical stupid bitch. No offense if she's watching. The exchange, no, and she's probably a nice person, but like, why were there women in the group chat like edgelording? Kind of gay, honestly. But anyway, it says the exchange is part of a trove of Telegram chats obtained by Politico, spanning 7 months of messages among young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. Chat offers an unfiltered look at how a new generation of GOP activists talk when they think no one is listening. And it goes on like this. They've been disavowed. It says prominent New York Republicans, including Elise Stefanik and State Senate Minority Leader Rob Ort, denounced the chat. Festering resentment among young Republicans have now turned into public recriminations, including allegations of character assassination and extortion. And here's basically the story of how this came about. So I guess there was a beef between Gavin Wax and the guy who ran the group chat. Gavin Wax and this guy, Peter Junta, whatever his name is, they had some beef because I guess this guy Peter got this committee chair position, and Gavin believed that he was passed over or usurped or screwed over. And so supposedly, this is a story, supposedly Gavin Wax leaned on, this is what is being alleged, somebody who was in the group chat working for his rival, Peter, and got this guy to send him the chat logs. And allegedly a threat was made or implied that if this person did not comply, that Gavin would go after him for violating an NDA, which covered some sordid activities. This is what the streets are saying. These are the rumors. Not verified. These are allegations. So Gavin Wax leaned on a guy inside his rival's circle, this guy that apparently he believes usurped him. Gavin got the logs, and one of his people, or he himself, allegedly handed this over to Politico to blow up this guy's inner circle, because that was the group chat. It was the war room for this rival. And I would say the first thing about this story is, if this is true, who is at fault here? It's Gavin Wax. And I'm a big believer, and if you're engaging in this kind of petty, friendly fire nonsense, you should just be blacklisted. You just got to go. And by that, I mean, this cannot be tolerated in right-wing circles. This kind of friendly fire, I mean, read the room. Charlie Kirk just got shot in the face by the left. And the tension is ratcheting up at these ICE facilities in Chicago and Portland. Like, these people want us dead. And you think about the gravity of the situation we're in, to be going after and betraying your own people, which is people you know or did know, young white guys that are controversial, feeding that to the left. And by the way, in such a manner that reinforces political correctness. Because, of course, what is this story going to be used to say? They are running this up the flagpole, and this will have ramifications not just for the people involved immediately, but for everybody. Because they're going to put this out to Politico, and the headline is going to be, Generation Z, the young white men, are all Nazis. We have a Nazi problem. And what do you think this does for every under 30 white Republican, white man, conservative in politics? Huge target on their backs. This puts pressure on TikTok and X to censor. It puts pressure on Republicans to denounce and close ranks and tighten up. And it gives the left ammunition because it justifies, especially after what happened, not just that Charlie Kirk was shot, but that so many of the left-wing people were punished for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I mean, read the room. So if this story is true, then that means Gavin Wax is a traitor to his generation, to young white men, to right-wingers, to free speech, all of it. And of course, it should not be lost on anybody who Gavin Wax is. And, listen, I've talked to Gavin Wax before. I think I have. I'm not a fan of the guy. And, people have said, oh, he likes you, he wants to meet you, this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, guy's Jewish. And not only that, it's not just that, okay? Which is, people might say, well, he's part of the Zionist Organization of America. Isn't he sent up to be in the World Zionist Congress in some kind of position? The guy's deeply embedded in pro-Israel politics. That's no coincidence. Think about the time and place. He's from New York City, Jewish, president of the New York Young Republicans. He's sent up for a position, I think it's either the ZOA or the WJC. I'm not making that up. He's either a delegate for the ZOA or the WJC, or the WZO, World Zionist Organization or Zionist Organization of America. I didn't do my research before the show. And this was something else that I saw earlier, either this year or last year. He's with Chuck Schumer, the senator from New York, a Democrat, honoring his grandma, who he says was a Holocaust survivor. Now, for context, the grandma was in Italy in the 1940s. That's a Holocaust survivor now? So go figure. Gavin Wax, the provocative, plucky chair of the New York Young Republicans, which is a pretty edgy club. I mean, they host the gala every year, and that's all these people talk about. No offense to them, but all the NYYRC, all they ever talk about is how, Jeremy Fragrance went to the club one year. And it's like, no one's ever heard of the end of it. But anyway, that's kind of like an inside joke. But so he's at this club. It's a pretty edgy club. Like Steve Bannon goes to their thing. Some of the rhetoric's a little edgy. And he's with the Senate minority leader, former Senate majority leader of the Democrats, another Jew from New York, Chuck Schumer, honoring his grandma, who he claims was in the Holocaust. She's from Italy. She's a Jew from Italy. She was in Italy during the Holocaust. And I saw that on Twitter. They posted it. It's like Chuck Schumer, Gavin Wax, and Gavin Wax's grandma. And my first thought is, that's a Holocaust survivor now? At least the other survivors could say, like, we went to an actual camp, Not to be glib, but it's like, at least you could say, there's some plausible, okay, maybe you were there, maybe, who knows? Were you one of the ones that really got operated on by Mengele or whatever? She was in Italy. That's the Holocaust now? And what's more, this is once again, my debate with Gavin McInnes came out yesterday, and the second part came out today. They're constantly insisting it's factional, that you've got these left-wing Jews and right-wing Jews, and they're fighting each other. And yet, where are they on Holocaust Memorial Day? You got the chair of the NYYRC, a very edgy right-wing club, allegedly, ostensibly new right, affiliated with some of these right-wing parties in Germany and in Europe, and they're sitting down right there with the Senate majority leader, former Senate majority leader for the Democrats. So where's the factional dispute there? And so I saw that and I said, yeah, I don't care what anybody says. I don't like this guy. I don't trust this guy. It'd be one thing if he was just Jewish. Look, it's New York. A lot of Jews live there. A lot of Jews on the board of the NYYRC. It is what it is. But he's a delegate for Zionist organizations. He's meeting up with Chuck Schumer. He's doing the whole Holocaust grift. And then, surprise, surprise, he's throwing all of his compatriots under the bus to get back over the student council president election for the Young Republicans. Aren't you a little old for that, pal? Don't you have a job at the State Department? Like, why do you need that? So if that story is true, and I don't know that it is 100%, I've heard a few different versions of the story, but that's the one that sounds convincing to me. Dude, this guy has to be expelled from everything. Like, he should be the one that should get canceled. Because I think we all recognize, whatever the disputes, factional disputes within the right wing, the left literally wants us dead. We know that after Charlie Kirk was killed, and before people flip out, whether you believe that Charlie Kirk was killed by a leftist or not, it does not change the fact that leftists celebrated. So what does that tell us? Whether Charlie was killed by the RNC or the Mormon Mafia or Israel or whatever, okay, which are all, potential suspects, the left celebrated regardless. They made action figures, T-shirts, they danced, they laughed. Maliciously, they crashed the vigils. That's who they are. And Charlie Kirk was to the left of all of us. I mean, he was probably to the left of NYYRC, almost everybody in there. Left of all the Groypers, everyone in the group chat. And they wanted him dead for his views. And so, like I said, read the room. If you're feeding your fellow Gen Z, white, pro-America compatriots to the left on the basis that they are racist Nazis for saying the N-word, you're worse than the left. Like, you're worse than the enemy. You're a traitor. Who could ever trust this guy ever again? Where's the discretion? It doesn't exist. And this is where, I saw some responses. I was actually pleasantly surprised. J.D. Vance came to the defense of these guys and masterfully flipped it around on the left. And honestly, I think that's cynical. I think that J.D. Vance knows the right things to say, and he knows that that's like the optical thing to do, because I think he's a very skilled politician. Regardless, I give him credit. I appreciate that. That needs to be said. That's good that he, in his stature, is saying this. He came out and said, there's a candidate running in Virginia for a statewide office who says that Republicans should die. Nobody in the RNC group chat or the YR group chat said that. And if they did, they're joking around. They're making jokes. They're being silly. They don't think anybody's watching. So we all know you code switch. I don't think that's malicious. When you're in private, you say things that are edgy. I know that's like hard for people to believe. You say things that are only understood within the context of who you're with. Everybody knows that's a joke. These are young Republicans. They want to cut taxes, They're not actually unironic exterminationists, National Socialists. And when you're with friends, you get comfortable. You know that they understand it as a joke. You're not airing that out on the front page of Politico. You don't intend for that to happen. And so J.D. Vance turned it around and said, look, you got some knucklehead kids. Yeah, they're in college. These are young kids joking around in a group chat. Meanwhile, you got people that are actually trying to take over the government that want conservatives to die. And conservatives are being murdered, and they like that. So I thought that was great. But I will say that another reaction came from Matt Walsh. And I replied to one of Matt Walsh's tweets. He said, after Charlie died, I said that we need to unify, and everybody basically told me no. He said, but we don't understand that the left is trying to ruin our lives, blah, blah, blah. But I said, look, Matt, I said, and I don't know, when he said that he wanted the right to unify, I don't know if he was referring to me, and maybe he was, and maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was intending for me to be one of the people he wanted to extend the olive branch to. I'm open to that. If he texted me privately, I'd be very discreet and down low about it. I wouldn't tell anybody that he's a closeted Groyper or something or whatever, or a fan of the show. But I said, look, it's really hard for anybody to unify with you, Matt, because you work with Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klavan, and Jordan Peterson. And they are all in the pocket of Israel. And we know that these people, they hate us. Like, anyone that is not down with Israel, they actually hate. And it's not a Christian thing where it's like we love our enemies. No, they want us dead. Just like the left wants us dead, Shapiro wants us dead. Klavan wants us dead. And think about the way they talk about us. They call us filth, garbage. Like it's they can barely conceal. It's like a seething contempt and hatred. And so I look at someone like Matt Walsh, and he kind of sounds like the white guy in the story with Gavin Wax, where it's like, yeah, maybe you're okay. And I think Matt Walsh's intentions are good, but who's down the hall and to the left? It's Shapiro, who ruins people's lives. It's Klavan, who would do the same. It's Jordan Peterson, who said, I'm lower than a rat. And it's like, I'm sorry. I would like to unify with you, and I'd like to think you're a good guy, but I can't actually unite with you as long as you're mobbed up with that crew, who are very similar in that way to Gavin Wax. And so it's sort of, I have the same message for Walsh, for anybody, for the Trump voters. It's we need to start taking our own side. and recognizing that you just can never get too comfortable around these people, because on some level, you don't even know, is the real reason that Gavin Wax leaked the group chat, did he do that on the order of the Zionist lobby? They must know they have a Groyper problem. These guys I don't know, but Groypers are all over the government, and everyone knows that. There's Groypers at Harvard. There's Groypers in all the Ivy League schools. I talked to all of them. There's Groypers in government. There's Groypers in every department, every agency, okay? And I almost wonder if this was an operation to try to start to roll that back. You don't know. And I would suspect that I'm probably not far off the mark on that. So it's just another message that these people are not really on our side. Anyone's a delegate for the ZOA. I don't care how based they sound. I don't care if they told you they're going to be your friend forever. All roads lead to Rome. You know, maybe they said, oh, we're going to be friends forever. Guys, we'll be friends forever, right? All roads lead to Rome. You know, no, actually that's not the case, especially with them. This is what they do. And here's the last thing I'll say about it before I move on. Of course, I did a viral clip last week, I think on Friday, where I said that I want the Groypers to infiltrate the system. I want them to go to highly selective schools. I want them to infiltrate the top law firms, the biggest businesses, defense contractors, the security state. And a lot of people clowned on me for that. And now people are saying, well, this is what happens when you infiltrate. I would say to that, and by that I mean they said, well, look, Nick said to infiltrate. These are the fruits of infiltration. You get exposed in group chats, etc. It doesn't work. I would say on that point, to build upon what I said on Friday, this is why I tell people, hide your power level, okay? You're not hiding your power level if you're in a group chat with hundreds of people saying we're going to put people in gas chambers, okay, guys? Now, I know it's funny. And I joke around like that on my show, and I'm very cavalier about it, and maybe I'm setting a bad example. But if you are in the Young Republicans, and I'm speaking to you, if you're in college Republicans, if you are in the administration, if you're in a high position, you can't be putting this in writing. You can't. I'm not going to say don't ever joke, but look. Signal, Telegram, let's put the disappearing messages timer on. Let's not put this in writing. Let's just not go there. If you're going to hide your power level, if you're going to be a ninja, you can't go blasting off in everybody's faces. Pause. You can't be blasting off with all this kind of stuff in a giant group chat in writing with your real face. Okay, that's not good OPSEC. It's not a good idea. You can't do it. And you'd be surprised. I've had this talk with a lot of people, and I tell them, this is big boy stuff, okay? Time to put on the big boy pants. We got to grow out of that stuff. And I get it. It's tough. You know, people want that release. It's difficult. When you're infiltrating the system, you have to wear a mask, and you have to assume an identity. It's a spy game. It's tough, especially for young guys. They want that release. They want to be able to be authentic, especially me. I mean, I've fought a very difficult battle to be myself. But when you're doing that, it's so risky. The other thing I'll say about it, though, is that it's not the end of the road for them. For anybody that says, oh, this proves infiltration doesn't work, I would say in any war, there's battles, and in every battle, you move up and down the battlefield. And this is just what happens. It's attrition, you know. Over time, there's this swarm. Young men, all young men are getting red-pilled. All young men are talking like this, okay, unless they're gay. Or, you know, even some of the gay ones are talking like, you know, according to J.D. Vance, there's like normal gay guys apparently that are talking like this, okay? Everyone's talking like this. Every under 30 young white man is, even left-wing ones are joking like this. Trust me. And it is just jokes. Political correctness is dead. Wokeness is over, okay? Comedy has been legalized. We have legalized comedy. We're all talking like this. Where was I going with this? I totally lost because of that awesome joke. Comedy got legalized. Everyone's talking like this. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And so, look, this is happening everywhere, okay? Everyone's paying attention to this. Everyone's paying attention to the conversation being changed. And every generation of Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Princeton alum is going to graduate a good amount of groypers. And a good amount of them, no one knows who they are. I don't know them. They're not involved in anything. They're just keeping it to themselves. And eventually they're going to become very powerful. And along the way, yes, some of them are going to get their spot blown up, and some of them are going to get canceled, and some of them are going to get fired. But that is just the name of the game. And here's something. It's sort of like that survivorship bias kind of diagram. It's like, maybe that doesn't apply here. I have to think about it to really understand that. But if infiltration was useless or unnecessary, why would they be doing this? Why is it that some of these like left-wing journalists and others, why do you think, and this Politico guy that wrote this piece, this guy's been sniffing around that scene for a long time. Why do you think they're so up everybody's ass if infiltration didn't matter, if they weren't concerned? Why do you think they're panicking and mobilizing and freaking out and trying to frame the groypers for killing Charlie Kirk? It's because they don't want to graduate a new generation of future elites who are not beholden to Israel, who are not woke, whatever. It's because it works. And so just because you lose a battle, or even you get pushed back on the battlefield, it doesn't mean you give up the war. It doesn't mean you give up the fight. And I saw some people saying that. I thought that was really petty and kind of pathetic, that people use this as an opportunity to score points. It's like, no, these guys were doing a great thing. These guys are, they're not woke, they're based, and they're doing what they're supposed to be. They're rising up in the party leadership. They're rising up in the government. The mistake that they made is that they were sloppy. They were careless, they were sloppy, and I'm assuming these are jokes. And I do just want to clarify, because it is worth saying on the record, this is just how young kids talk, okay? It is jokes. To the extent, if these guys are not joking and they're unironic, they want to kill everybody, then obviously I don't support that. This is the language of Generation Z. This is the language of a generation that was told for 10 years, everything's racist, everything's whatever, and this is just how they speak. Most of these guys are Catholic, Christian. They're just patriots. They want what's best for the country. Then they just go home and they make edgy jokes with each other because it's transgressive. It's what young people do. If that even needs to be said, it should be said for the, like I said, just on the record. But because, and that's why I really have an axe to grind now with Gavin Wax. This and a lot of these other things, just trust me on this, and it's just logical. They're going to run stuff like this up the flagpole, and they're going to use it to beat us to death on the left and on the establishment right. They're going to use stuff like this to scaremonger and fearmonger, even this show, for example. And they're going to say, Generation Z are all Nazis. This is how they talk when no one's looking. They're hiding their true evil intent, and that's why they have to be stopped at any means necessary. And no doubt, the left is radicalizing Tyler Robinson to go and kill people like this. And they're mobilizing their base to go and vote in the next election because they think Trump represents all this. And the end goal then is to pass laws to literally hurt us and destroy our lives, to throw us in jail, people like me, people like those named in the article, and then oppress everybody, and punish us with immigration and the rest of it. So, for Gavin Wax to do that, maybe it could get away with that 10 years ago. That kind of bullshit was very common. That's just politics. Shame on the people that were involved for being so sloppy and careless. Everybody does it, but you really shouldn't. It's just irresponsible because you're there on a mission. You're a spy. But really, fuck Gavin Wax. Everybody needs to text him and say, hey, fuck you, man. If you know him, if you have his number, if you're in politics, you have an obligation to say, hey, man, fuck you, if this story's true. Because it's like you have betrayed everybody. And, thanks for proving the stereotype, too, by the way. I will have nothing to do with anyone who's involved with him. I'm not going to hang out with somebody that leans on people and threatens litigation allegedly, threatening litigation to get the text messages. I'm going to tell on you to Politico because you made a joke, because I didn't win student council president and the young Republicans. Like, fuck you, dude. F you. Total dirtbag. So, maybe I'll be eating these words later if there's proof that this is not him, but I very strongly suspect that is the case, even though it's alleged, and I will get to the bottom of it. But if that's true, like, no quarter for traitors like that. Disgusting filth. No surprises either. I would not even be the slightest. I would not be surprised in the slightest if that was his doing, because that's how these people are. And by these people, I don't mean Jews. That's not a dog whistle. I mean these like Zionist Jewish types. They will do anything for Israel. And in particular, these like, you got to understand something about government. The government is filled, like, I hate to say it, I really do, but John Doyle's kind of right, that the Washington, D.C. and the Republican Party and the administration, it is filled to the brim with like stunted, arrested development, losers from high school. And the second that they get a committee assignment in the GOP, the second they get a head pat from the government, they cannot wait to exaggerate their importance, cannot wait to flex their administrative powers that are at their discretion. And literally, they all think that they're the man. Like every Republican staffer, intern, wannabe, they all think that they're the man, and they want to go and swing their, big you-know-what around the city. And that's just prototypical. And if you're in D.C., you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like these Washington, D.C. creatures, and that's what Gavin Wax is, running the NYYRC. Complete climber, striver, wannabe student council president, wannabe factotum, or Miranda Cosgrove from School of Rock. And that's just so typical, to like not see the big picture. And him being a Zionist Jew, that plays a part too. But anyway, so that's that. I want to move on. I want to talk about this story in the Washington Post, which I'll pull up. This is another big story. Not cool. Switching gears a little bit, we covered the Gaza peace plan all last week. And so much fanfare and so much pomp and triumphalism surrounding this deal. I'm sure you all saw Trump's speech at the Israeli Knesset. What the fuck was that? I mean, he goes up there. Like, you can't even overstate, you can't even exaggerate how ridiculous, like what a folly this was. So last Monday, was it really only just been a week? Maybe it was more than a week. Trump and Netanyahu come together for the fourth time this year in America. They hold a press conference and they present this 20-point plan for peace in Gaza. And over the ensuing week, Trump really nails Netanyahu down and gets him to agree to a first phase implementing the 20-point plan. And this consists in a ceasefire, a partial withdrawal from the IDF, and a prisoner exchange. Hamas gives up the remaining hostages. Israel frees, I think it's about 1,500 Palestinian hostages or prisoners. All the Zionists got mad that people are calling them hostages. I don't know. They seem like hostages to me. But anyway, so they implement the deal, and Trump flies out to Israel to speak at the Israeli Knesset, their parliament, their legislature, and then flies to Egypt to sign the deal with the House of Al-Thani from Qatar, with the Egyptian president, with Erdogan from Turkey. I think Maloney was there, Starmer was there, everybody was there. Trump goes to Israel to give this speech, and the glazing was like, it's a level of glazing that shouldn't even be possible. He goes up there and says, no one went to the White House more than the Adelsons. He said, and I asked Miriam Adelson, which do you love more, America or Israel? And she wouldn't answer. It's like, they're just giving it away. They're just saying it now. And Shapiro, or somebody, I think it was an Israeli reporter from one of the Israeli television stations, said that the head of the dais, I don't know which official it was, but the head of the dais in the parliament put on his yarmulke because it was a religious experience. There's some Israeli reporter said, in 20 years of reporting on the Knesset, I've never seen anything like this. People were putting on their yarmulkes, which they don't even do normally. He said, and they put on the yarmulke to show religious reverence for Trump and what he was saying in the speech. Okay, this is what, I'm not even exaggerating, that's what they said. And then in the middle of the speech, Trump, unscripted, says to the president of Israel, which is different than Netanyahu, he says to the president of Israel, you should pardon Netanyahu. He's a war hero. He knows how to win. That's why everyone loves him. And you need to give him a pardon, like seriously. Okay? And Netanyahu is happy as a clam. Like, this guy could not be happier. Happy as a clam. So this is a speech that Trump gives at the Knesset. It's a religious experience for the Jews. He's their Messiah. Then Trump flies to Egypt and signs the deal. And so far, so good. It looks like Hamas is giving up the 20 remaining living hostages. Israel's preparing to give up some of the prisoners. And what's really interesting is now some of these Muslim countries are disavowing Hamas. And October 7th, Mahmoud Abbas, who is the head of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, he condemned October 7th for the first time. And there's some reporting that says that Hamas is laying down their weapons. I haven't seen that verified, but if that's true, it does seem that maybe this peace plan has some legs. I was very skeptical. And just very briefly, in a nutshell, my problem with the peace plan is that they didn't agree to all of it yet. Okay, they're implementing it in phases. The parts that they have not agreed upon are really the root causes of the conflict. It's whether there'll be a Palestinian state. It's whether Hamas will disarm and leave. It's whether Israel will retain security control over the Strip. These are all things that have been the root problems. These have been kind of the source of the intransigence from the very beginning. So in other words, if there was no agreement on this in January of this year, in May of last year, in November of 23, why is there suddenly agreement on this now? And so I suspected that this, like every other ceasefire, was just Israel buying time to get a reprieve for their reserve forces, to maybe refocus on another adversary in the theater, a different theater in the conflict, like Iran, or even the Houthis for that matter, or disarming Hezbollah. Take your pick. They're temporarily pausing in Gaza so they could go and focus on the other guys, give the ground forces a breather, and then go back in later, absent a commitment to implement a longer-term deal. But some of what's being said has surprised me. And like I said, Abbas disavowing October 7th, some reporting that says Hamas is ready to disarm. It seems like maybe it really is over. I mean, who knows? But then I saw the story today in the Washington Post, and you've got Donald Trump saying that if Hamas does not voluntarily disarm, if they don't give up their weapons and leave the Strip, Trump says that the United States will violently disarm them. And I'll read the story, then we'll explain the significance. It says, President Trump said Tuesday that the United States could step in to disarm Hamas quickly and perhaps violently if the organization does not do so itself. He said, which is a potential vulnerability in the U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement that has tentatively brought an end to 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, which has controlled Gaza for nearly 2 decades, has not yet publicly agreed to or signed anything specifying how it will disarm, although Trump suggested that he had received verbal assurances that they would. He said, everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm, he said. And I spoke to Hamas and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's why they told me they will disarm or we will disarm them. Got it? Trump declined to provide specifics on how the United States would do that, and when asked about a deadline, said it would be a reasonable period of time. He's just like an NPC. It literally is like a dialogue tree, right? They said, sir, how many times have you heard Trump, he retells a story, and in every story, the people are saying, sir, sir. Every story starts with another person talking to Trump and respectfully addressing him. Sir, sir. Hamas said. So, do you really think Hamas said that? Were they even speaking English? Like, what are you talking about? And then, what's the deadline? A reasonable period of time, like no one's ever seen. It's just like NPC response. It's just like a sound box, right? You press the button, you just get the same things. Anyway, he says, I don't have to explain that to you. Love it. But if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. They know I'm not playing games. Later, he went on a tangent that suggested he believed Hamas could not yet disarm because the group needed to take out a couple of gangs that were very bad. He said, we have told them we want them to disarm, and they will disarm, and if they don't disarm, we will disarm them, and it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently, but they strongly and powerfully, and we're monitoring. He says, but they will disarm. Do you understand me? Now, why does this matter? Of course, this is ultimately what the war is actually about. The war, why did Hamas attack Israel? It's simple. Hamas attacked Israel because of a deal that was in the works between Israel and Saudi Arabia. What does Trump do in his first term? He and Jared Kushner facilitate the Abraham Accords, which is a diplomatic breakthrough. Prior to Trump's first administration, Israel had normalized relations with just two countries in the Middle East, Egypt and Jordan, by treaty. At Camp David in 79, in Jordan, I think in 93, both by treaty. Every other country, with the exception of Turkey, which recognized them almost immediately in 48, every other country from Morocco all the way through to Pakistan does not recognize Israel's existence, its right to exist, does not have normal diplomatic, economic relations with them. They have some like clandestine cooperation, like in the Gulf, for example, but none of them had normal relations. And this is really the crux of the whole Israel-Middle East conflict, is that Israel is here, and they're, some might say trying to integrate into the region, but it's a hostile region. You could argue they're not really integrating, they're trying to dominate, but the point is, how do you resolve this problem? The Israelis arrive, they displace the natives. Every other country goes to war against them, right? And there's debates about who provoked who, but needless to say, there's this perpetual enmity between them and every other country. Every other country does not accept their presence in the region, and they call them an illegitimate regime. They call it an occupation, the Zionist occupation regime, because they fundamentally reject that the Jews have sovereignty over the territory, which they believe is Palestine. Anyway, this is really at the heart of all of it on some level. So Trump gets in, and he brokers the Abraham Accords, and he bribes, effectively, Morocco and Sudan and Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates to normalize their relations with Israel. And it's a huge breakthrough because nobody thought this could be done. Why do these countries not normalize relations with Israel? Because of the Israel-Palestine conflict, because they believe that Israel is not a legitimate state, has no legitimate claim to the land. They committed the Nakba. They occupy the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Some of them think they got to go altogether. Some of them think they need to return to the pre-67 borders. There's a lot, but they will not recognize Israel as legitimate sovereign over the territory because of the Israel-Palestine conflict. As such, they cannot have any normal relationship, no strategic relationship, economic relationship, diplomatic relationship, and nothing official, formal on the books. So this is a huge breakthrough. And Trump brings over the Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco. And one of the big things this opens up is the opportunity for the Gulf countries, which are rich in oil and have this facility, the petrodollar system. They have all this cash. They can start to invest their sovereign wealth funds into Israel. And Jared Kushner is at the forefront of this. He brokers the deal with his connections to Israel and the Gulf. And Kushner makes a fortune when the sovereign wealth funds of the Gulf countries begin to pour their capital into Israel. And then what does this point towards? Really like a new model and like a new approach to peace in the Middle East. And fundamentally what changes is Trump circumvents the Israel-Palestine conflict. The old way of thinking about this is that in order for Israel to be integrated in the region, we got to solve Israel-Palestine, which is intractable. It's impossible. So until this impossible problem is solved, like, we can't fix the Middle East. Trump says, forget it. Like, let's just bribe these countries. Let's just give them what they want. And, they'll just kind of abandon the Palestinian cause, basically. That's the root of the problem. Now, the Abraham Accords point towards Saudi Arabia recognizing Israel, leaving the Palestinian question unresolved. And so under Trump, they start to work on this. And then under Biden, they really go to work. And Biden even goes to Saudi Arabia for other reasons. He wanted them to increase oil production, but Biden's really pushing for Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel and offering a defense guarantee, like a NATO-like security guarantee to Saudi Arabia, weapons packages. Like, they're bribing Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel. And if this happens, and this was almost on the way to completion in August of 2023, so this is 2 months before October 7th, and the Palestinians see what's happening. And what is happening is they're being boxed out. They're no longer going to have a seat at the table. Whereas before, all the Muslim countries were sort of ideologically rallied to the side of the Palestinian cause and holding up Israel's integration in the region as long as Israel is occupying the territories. Now these countries are sort of selling out the Palestinians and saying, you know what, fuck the Palestinians. We want to invest in Israel. We want the bribes that America's going to give us. Because America's really going to come through for us. They're going to protect us. They're going to give us weapons. Then we get to work with Israel, and we're really going to be stable and safe and have prosperity, and our problems are going to go away. So the Palestinians are being treated sort of like an inconvenience and an afterthought. Now, if all of these Arab countries abandon Palestine, then Palestine becomes basically a problem for Israel only. And Israel can really handle it however they want. They don't have to worry about alienating anybody. They got them. So Israel can continue the settlements in the West Bank. Israel can continue the status quo in Gaza. And they're going to get Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Bahrain and eventually every Syria, Lebanon. They're going to get all these countries normalizing, investing in Israel, and then it's up to them what they do to Palestine, and they're going to crush Palestine. So Hamas attacks Israel on October 7th to throw a wrench in the process. How? They go and commit these atrocities. They take hostages. They force Israel to come in really strong. And as long as Israel is brutally bombing Gaza, Saudi Arabia cannot make the deal because the people would revolt. These other governments cannot make the deal because the people would revolt. The Hamas effectively forces everybody back onto their side, forces them to take their side if they open up a direct conflict with Israel, if they create this confrontation. That was really the playbook. And so, in any case, that's the root cause of the conflict from like Hamas's point of view. Now, if Israel is going to maintain security control over the Strip, if there's no commitment for there to be a Palestinian state, if the war ends without those commitments, and then Israel makes peace with Saudi Arabia, and then Syria, Lebanon, Indonesia, Pakistan, and this is what's being discussed. On the heels of this peace conference, if you paid attention, Trump said, I think the Abraham Accords are going to go very quickly. And what are these other developments? Assad has been expelled from Syria, and someone tried to poison him in Russia. And what has come to power in Syria is a pro-Western government run by Ahmed al-Shara. He's kicked out the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and now he wants to make a deal with Israel and normalize. In Lebanon, the Lebanese government has voted to disarm Hezbollah, says there can be no paramilitary organization armed to the teeth on our soil, and the U.S. and Israel say we will implement this. After Israel neutralized Hezbollah in October of last year, they're saying we're going to complete the job, disarm them, and all that will be left is this like Lebanese rump state that Israel will dominate and effectively annex South Lebanon, south of the Litani River. They'll effectively annex southern Syria where the Druze live, the Purple Zone, all of it. The Golan is just gone. So you're going to have Syria come in on the side of Israel, Lebanon come in on the side of Israel, then probably Saudi Arabia, then maybe Pakistan and Indonesia. Now it's even worse. So in 23, you had Bahrain, the Emirates, Sudan, and Morocco. Maybe Saudi Arabia. Now you got all them, plus Syria, plus Lebanon, plus Pakistan, plus Indonesia due to recent events, and the Palestinians will not have their state. In the 20-point plan, there's no commitment for a Palestinian state. It's by definition neocolonialism. And, I know that's a word used by third worldists, but it's what it is. They say that Gaza will be run by a technocratic committee under basically a trust, which is owned by Trump and Tony Blair. And Israel will train up the security force. They're going to keep the Palestinian Authority out. It's literally, this territory is going to be annexed effectively by America and Israel. And so here's the point. Is Hamas going to now just give up their weapons and say, oh, well, we tried it, so we're laying down our arms, and Israel and America are going to take over the Strip, and that's the end of Palestine? I find that very hard to believe. And that's why I think that this is a very tenuous peace plan, because I think that Trump says they committed to give up their arms. Like I said, there's been some surprises already. Maybe that's true, but that would fly in the face of both sides. Israel will never accept a Palestinian state on their border, so I don't see them settling for anything less than ethnic cleansing, and at the minimum, a denial of a Palestinian entity. And I don't see Hamas laying down their arms if there's no commitment to a Palestinian state, if there's no guarantee, and there isn't one. So all that would mean is that there's a mutual agreement on both sides that they're going to just defer the conflict. Hamas is just getting destroyed. Israel's bulldozing all the cities. And Israel is, their ground forces are reservists and they're tired. And they want to fight Iran for a little bit. So, the question is whether this is a breather for both sides or whether it's a definitive end. Now Trump is saying, well, look, Hamas said they're going to do it, but if they don't, I'm going to disarm them. And like I said, that's the part that I don't like. Maybe it's an idle threat. He makes a lot of those maximalist demands and threats that he really never follows through on. But look, you give Israel an inch, they take a mile. He said, we're going to make sure that Iran doesn't have nukes. And Israel said, okay, bet. We'll bomb them. Oh, we're in trouble. Now you have to help us. So if Trump says, well, if they don't disarm, we're going to violently do it for them. Okay, so what do you think Netanyahu's next move is? Sabotage the peace deal, make Trump look like an asshole. Think about second, third order consequences. If the peace deal falls through, Trump looks like an absolute idiot. If the peace deal doesn't work for any reason, Trump is utterly humiliated. Think about the speech he gives at the Knesset. He flies to Egypt, peace 2025. Surely he wins the Nobel Prize. His triumph, Time magazine. So if this thing falls through in weeks, months, he just looks like an idiot. And he'll do what it takes to follow through on the deal. And if Hamas is the one that isn't, disarming according to the agreement, do you think that he would stop Israel from disarming them, going back in and renewing the conflict? Or do you think that even he would have reservations about intervening? I mean, I don't like now that we're verbally committed to that. So, already, and I don't want to say that, who knows? Maybe it works. Maybe it works. Maybe Trump knows something that we don't, and it's a good deal. Maybe things have changed. We don't know that. But it seems like the cracks are starting to show already. And for Trump to even have to say that, it's like, okay, so do we have a deal or not? Because if they agreed to disarm, then it's like, wow, you beat them. You beat them. They're giving up. They're done. Trump solved it. But if it's even a question and Trump says, well, I don't know when they're going to disarm, and I don't know if they meant it when they said they would, but if they're not serious, then we're going to kill them. It's like, okay, so is there a deal or not? And if you've been following this war for the past 2 years, it's deja vu all over again. Oh, we have a deal, but no one really agrees on what's going to happen after the 6-week ceasefire, right? No one actually knows what the day after will look like in Gaza. Well, that's kind of the whole point of the war, isn't it? What the day after will be? Israel wants to kill Hamas. Hamas wants not to be killed. So unless Hamas has agreed to commit suicide, it seems like the war will go on until Israel kills them or America does it for them. So I didn't like that. And to me, that throws a lot of cold water on the whole thing. If that sounds worse than what we had before. It's like before it was atrocious and it was horrible, but Israel was doing it and we were paying for it. Now is the prospect that for us to have peace, we have to go and bomb Hamas? How is that better? That seems worse, actually. It seems like worse than before the deal. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll watch, as they implement it. But we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. And then I'm going to get out of here. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a show tomorrow, once again on the road. I'll be on InfoWars Thursday morning, and then I'll be doing another show. Tomorrow's Wednesday. It's late. I'm doing a show tomorrow, Wednesday. Thursday morning, doing InfoWars, and then tonight I'm doing a show. I might take Friday off, but I'll probably do a show. I might take Friday off, but maybe. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling, if I'm up for it. And then, next week, we got a big collaboration. I might be doing another show on the road Monday. Tuesday, we got one you guys have been waiting for a while. It's going to be a little contentious, but it's going to be good. Tuesday night. So I'm, generational run. No breaks on this train. No rest, no breaks.
All right, let's get right to it. Nick started off talking about this young Republican group. So I took a look at this Political article. Let me pull this up real quick. And, it starts off the title, I Love Hitler, leaked messages expose young Republicans, racist chat. And then I get into the first paragraph before it opens up leaders of the young Republicans groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. Then it goes right into, they referred to Black people as monkeys and the watermelon people, and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. And a bunch of thoughts come to mind before we even get into, I guess, my opinion on the treatment of people after having their private messages exposed. And some of these initial things that come to mind is that it's like they always have to establish this racial foundation with Black people, right? It's like, I don't know. And this is what I mean. A bunch of thoughts coming to my mind. I don't know if the people in this group message actually see Black people as their number one target as far as who they need to go up against in order to accomplish their goals. But it seems like they're establishing the racism is real and we'll use Black people just to establish, that credibility off the jump. And maybe this is just me as a Black person who sees myself as being conservative. And when I see these things, I'm like, damn, they just got to throw the watermelon and Black people as monkeys out there first. And then obviously that's going to set the tone on reading the rest of the article, right? They established this offensive nature in the beginning, and then you're going to go into the rest of the article with a certain perspective. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but what I've come to find out, and even being in some of these group messages, perhaps, with people who may be younger Republicans, is that they may say they're saying the N-word and saying different things where they're referring to Black people, but they're also talking about other people. And I don't say that to say, well, but they're also talking about other people to take away from the messed up things that they're saying about Black people. I'm saying it as, why are these articles highlighting certain aspects of things they're saying about Black people? It just seems like they're trying to always racialize and build on the Black versus white issue, when in actuality, in a lot of these messages, I don't think that's the main, confronting forces. I don't. I think it's more so white versus Jewish, or white Christians versus Jewish people, however the classification is, but they try to establish this racial credibility by throwing black people in there. You get what I'm saying? And maybe I'm just sensitive to that because I see that as a strategy that the Democrats and liberals have used for a very long time. And I see that as a strategy that a lot of these other groups, whether it's the LGBTQ, whether it's, let's say you go back with the women's movement, feminist movement, even certain things with the, I don't even know the proper word, Latino or Hispanic movement. I've seen how other groups of people use black people and use this racist black ideology or whatever. They'll try to use that to rile people up and to establish some form of credibility as to whatever forces they're up against. Well, they're racist. This is what they said about black people. And then they'll go on and then push whatever it is that they're pushing. Like you just see that when they use black people to, I guess, get emotionally triggered, or they use the black situation to be emotionally triggered, because on the surface level, living in America, when we hear the term racism, we automatically think white versus black. So it's just an easy way for them. Like I said, I keep using this credibility word to establish this racial credibility when it comes to these type of issues. But yeah, neither here nor there. Maybe that's just my own bias and sensitivities. But, you know, and then they go on, they say they talked about graping their enemies and driving them to suicide and lauded Republicans who they believe support slavery. I don't know. And let's maybe move that to the side. Maybe I'm being emotionally triggered, but I just see that as a tactic that a lot of them use. And it's almost a question that I would even ask a lot of the people in the group message. Because like I said, I'm in some of these group messages and I've had these conversations. It's like, why do y'all feel the need to almost validate yourselves by almost attacking, or not even attacking, but just discussing the low-hanging fruit? Like, it's very low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, for these groups to talk about black people. It's like black people not even doing well enough for you to be looking at black people as what's holding you back and what's taking away opportunities from you, if we're being real. If disaffected young white men think that they're losing opportunities, like Nick always says, that America is not serving this particular demographic of people, these young white men, it ain't because black people taking opportunities away from you. And even if you look at DEI, I'm somebody, I can't stand DEI. I'm not with the affirmative action and what it's morphed into today's DEI. And the main reason I'm not with it is because I don't think it works. I think it just it's one of those same things, just like I'm talking about with this article, well, they'll dangle, the black racism, and we need to figure out how to get blacks more opportunities. But then when you actually look at the numbers, DEI benefits, I think, white women and a whole bunch of other people, handicap, LGBTQ, all these other groups, and like black people are like 6th or 7th on the list. So I don't agree with it. I think it creates a victimhood mentality in a lot of black people, which the country has relied on for so long and we've embraced for so long, and it's not serving us at all. Embracing this, it just creates this sense of entitlement, all these other things outside of just figuring out how to put all your time, effort, and energy into empowering yourself to bring about whatever difference and change you want, rather than blaming other people or feeling entitled that the government's going to solve your problems. I just don't embrace that mindset. So going back to the actual point, it just seems like low-hanging fruit, even when you're in these groups. It's like, oh, you need to express yourself. You need to say the N-word. You need to talk down about black people. And it's just, I don't know. Why don't you go? It's almost like go pick on somebody your own size. Like if you really amped up and you really feel like you're ready to go engage in whatever fight on whatever front, you're trying to pursue, then go bring it to somebody who's actually, a credible opponent. And I don't say that proudly, but I think black people are doing so poorly in this country that when people feel the need to take swipes at black people or whatever, however you see fit, it's just like, bro, go take on a bigger challenger. Go take on a bigger challenger. You don't need to show us, oh, you racist? Racist? All right, well, if you want to demonstrate that, then go have that energy towards Jewish people, because that seems to be who you're complaining about the most when you get past all the name calling and all the trivial things that you have to discuss when it comes to Black people. Take that energy over there. We're not controlling anything. And this is the same thing that I talked about. I went back and forth with this dude in the group, in one of this group messages that I was in, and he's talking about, oh yeah, I'm standing up against, Black people coming in and taking over the white neighborhoods. And I'm like, bro, that's such a victim mentality. And I can understand. It's like, I can sense it, because they try to use that type of logic with us and making us victims. And I'm like, bro, why don't you address the people who are selling their homes to Black people? If that's really how you feel, why don't you log out of this group chat, make more money, and then you can live around whoever it is that you want to live around, if we really want to discuss it. And if you're and then he's responded and said, well, I live around white people. I'm looking out for other people. All right, well, like I said, it sounds like you and your people need to take accountability, because if Black people are moving in that neighborhood, they're either renting from a white person, or a white person is selling them the home. So address that energy to them. You know what I mean? It's just so, a lot of this, they're distractions. They're distractions. And this is one of my issues, and a lot of y'all may get upset about this. It is what it is. This is one of my criticisms when it comes to even Nick using certain rhetoric that he uses. And the reason why it comes, or I'm having these thoughts when it comes to Nick's rhetoric that he's using, is based on, I don't even think that Nick wants to use the N-word. I don't think he wants to use that rhetoric. I think that whenever he recognizes that he's developing and he's going on podcasts like Dave Smith and he's speaking about race in one way, I think a lot of his base, he feels that he needs to kind of reconnect with them and get them fired up and make sure that no matter what happens, no matter how he develops in his thinking, that he never loses them. So then he's almost confronted with this this dilemma of, do I appeal to my audience and pander to them based on what got them fanatically obsessed with me in the first place? Or do I help them develop as I'm developing with the conversations, with the building, with the growth that I'm having internally? He got to figure that out for himself. But aside all that, I don't want to focus on Nick when it comes to that aspect. I want to focus on this group chat. Do I think that something should happen to these people as far as them losing their jobs, them being held accountable? I think it's a slippery slope. This is a private conversation. However, with private conversations, I guess once they're leaked, it is what it is, right? I mean, we hold a lot of people accountable for a lot of the things that they did during their private times. Things that they thought were private conversations. I don't know. I guess I'm more along the lines of, if you talk like that privately, I guess I'm reminded of my pops telling me, when you're making certain decisions. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to a group message that you're thinking is never going to get out there. But he's like, yo, if you're conflicted on a decision, just think about if it's going to appear on the front page of the New York Times tomorrow, and that may give you some more clarity. Perhaps we should be a little bit more careful about how we're speaking. If we're worried about certain things getting out there, we could blame. I know Nick was blaming the guy that put it out there. I would probably align with Nick's sentiments on that as well, because in a lot of ways, it's like, oh, you didn't have a problem with the group chat. Now you're just trying to expose it because you're sour and being a sore loser and lost this election. So I'm definitely with Nick when it comes to that. If that's what happened, I'm definitely aligned with him with that, which is like, bro, don't try to expose stuff that you were cool with, as long as you were getting what you wanted out of it. Now you try to expose it just because, like I said, you're being a sore loser. So I'm not with that. But a lot of these, we don't have to approach just one aspect of this. There's a lot of things I think, to process and to unpack when it comes with this situation. Use whatever language that you want to use. Why not just use it publicly? I don't know. I guess because it's offensive. So I guess if you know that there's a chance of it being exposed and being put out there, maybe just don't even use it at all. I don't know. I don't know. If you want to use it, I guess. But then if it gets put out there, can you be upset that you're going to be held accountable for using it? I don't know. Some people may just say, all right, it's a joke. Wasn't a big deal. You're just making a joke in a group message. Other people, for either political reasons, like I believe, what was the lady, Elise Stefanik? I forget her name. I don't want to go through this article just to find her name. But Stefanik, or I believe, whatever her name is, if a politician feels the need that now they have to disavow you based on what you said, then you got to understand that's what politicians do. Now, if it's somebody else that you're just working for, your boss, they may say, look, man, I write crazy stuff in my group message as well. Just be a little bit smarter next time. Maybe you don't want to have these type of conversations and use this type of rhetoric in a group message or anything else, whether it's Telegram, WhatsApp, you think it's secure. All somebody has to do is screenshot it and then it's put out there. I don't know what somebody's going to say from it. I guess it is what it is. If I had something exposed that I wasn't too fond of, language that I was using, I'd be upset at the person that exposed it. I'd probably project a lot of my anger that I'm really feeling towards myself for even using some of that language, but I project it on, that person shouldn't have put it out there. It's a private conversation. I'm with all that, but maybe a deeper way of looking at it is if we should even be using this type of, rhetoric. Nick, I believe, let me get back to my notes. I believe Nick said something about like, this is just how, a lot of the young people speak. And I get that, if you look at my group message, look, there's going to be stuff that I'm not going to be proud of or want, the entire world to see. So I'm definitely not trying to speak from some type of moral high ground as if, if you didn't go in my group message and most people's group message, they wouldn't have certain things. But I do think that it's escalated with that mob mentality when it comes to certain situations like this with certain groups because of what they're bonding on. Like when you have certain groups that are bonding on and they're taking pride in, oh, America hasn't been serving young white men the right way. I'm a white nationalist. I don't like that opportunities are being taken away from us and given to the blacks or given to the Spanish. You know what I mean? It does create an environment where you're going to have a lot of this offensive rhetoric, just being totally honest. Now, whether people actually feel that way, I don't know. I don't really care. I guess that's just something for people to process. If I was hiring these people, let's say if these people were employed by me and certain things came out about certain rhetoric that they were using, I don't know what I would do. First and foremost, I'd probably have a conversation with them and ask them, like, hey, how you feel about this? I probably just would. And then based on, how they responded, I guess I would judge it accordingly to that. I don't think that I would just fire them off the bat. I would want to know, like, hey, this type of things, how do you feel about this? Like, let's have a convo about it. That would be more my approach just personally with it. I believe, obviously we don't know what we do until we get into those situations, but I'd like to think that that's how I would handle the situations. But once again, I think that with a lot of these groups, especially the leaders in these groups, have to be very careful when it comes to the environment that they're setting for the rest of the people in the chat, because of, in my opinion, the reason why you're coming together, the reason why Nick Fuentes created the Groypers, the reason why a lot of people follow him. Even Nick has said plenty of times, even though he'll kind of go back and forth on it, that he's a white nationalist at heart. So when you have these type of group chats that are based on white nationalist ideology and you have frustrated young white men who, like Nick said, have been told maybe that they're racist inherently, or that they're born with a certain, all these things that they've been propagandized with, conditioned with, had it rammed down their throat that white men are just naturally racist, or whatever is being told to them. Now, when they get in a chat with, let's say, a group that's pushing white supremacy, or I'm sorry, not white supremacy, white nationalism, obviously this rhetoric can come out. So, yeah, it is what it is. This is one of the reasons why I wanted Nick to go on a Black platform. And I was talking to him about going on a Black platform, because when you have these type of conversations, in my opinion, I think there's a certain respect that is there when you're having a face-to-face conversation that may open up other people's eyes who follow you and see how you interact with people actually face-to-face. And I think that would be a positive for a lot of people. I really do think that would be a positive for a lot of people. I'm not sure if I'm totally unpacking it correctly, but I think y'all understand what I'm saying. Like, if Nick sat down and had a face-to-face conversation with somebody, let's say, who's Black, and not necessarily like just like the Hodge twins, but maybe somebody that didn't agree or see things the way that he sees things as much, I think that would open the door for a lot of people to see, like, okay, Nick actually conducts himself like this in this particular setting. And maybe that'll do something to a lot of his followers, to where now they can embrace a certain level of respect, or just see things from a different perspective, and understand that, like Nick says a lot of times, he's just using performative rhetoric because he's doing a show. But I think what happens is, a lot of the people that follow you, it's not just about the rhetoric for them. So let's keep going real quick. I'll finish up. I know I've been talking y'all heads off already, but I do think that a lot of it is just jokes. But period. And I also think that even with a lot of the jokes, if we look at what we're saying, maybe, and process it, maybe we don't want to make those jokes. Maybe we still will, maybe we won't. Doesn't matter. Honestly, it is what it is. Like, it is what it is. People say it, say it out loud at the end of the day. Say it out loud. If that's how you feel, make it known. I don't know. But then going back to the whole Trump Netanyahu situation, I won't spend too much time on this ceasefire peace deal. I don't see it as something that's going to stand true. It just seems like there's too much tension on both sides. And once again, it just makes me question, like, what was the point of all this killing anyway? I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Trump came out and said, it's kind of like he's mistakenly, I don't know if it's mistakenly or him just trying to sell himself as a Nobel Peace Prize. But, he mentioned that there's been, like, I think 400, 500 people. I'm not sure if he was talking about killed, or obviously they've been displaced. But he's talking about the death toll, which is obviously a lot different to what's been reported, which is that number of what, 40, 50, 60, the same number that has been, like, since the first couple months of the first year, those reports. So I just, it's very hard for me to believe that without addressing the foundational issues with the Nakba, with people not given the right to return home, with having their land, their homes taken from them, even though under international law, a government couldn't win a war and then displace the privately, like, take over the privately owned land and homes. That's just law. Israel violated that. The UN tried to get them to either allow Palestinians to have the right to return home, or to be compensated for the land that was taken from them and their property. Obviously, that hasn't been the case. I just see this as just another step. And, it's like playing chess, perhaps on both sides. And both sides have certain agendas that they want to get to. And just because you have a peace deal, that just kind of gives you time to go back to, it's like a bye week. It's like a bye week in football. Gives you more time to plan And as you take off that week or take off however long, and then before you get into the next phase of the war. So we'll wait and see. I think that it definitely is Trump glazing when it comes to not only, as Nick said, the Miriam Adelson conversation, which kind of interesting that she couldn't, I guess, say which one she likes more, U.S. or Israel. I guess it's not interesting at all. Actually, she answered without answering. That means if she's talking to Trump and she says she doesn't know, she's rocking with Israel more, in my opinion. But when Trump tells the president of Israel to pardon Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister, that's just it's just funny. It's just all politics, and that's probably what's most disappointing. When it comes to Trump, it's somebody that we're holding in higher regard than a politician, maybe in certain areas. But I guess he's just another politician. But we'll just sit back, see how these things play out. I think it was very interesting how Nick described what caused a lot of this stuff and how Hamas may have strategically planned to make sure that, hey, we want to take some hits on us and make sure that Israel's dropping bombs on us, maybe because that's going to force the other Arab countries in the area to support Palestine because their actual people support Palestine. Notice that he didn't say that the government, but it wouldn't allow their government to make certain deals that they may have wanted to, like Saudi Arabia and Israel, because the people would push against it. So all this, it's just chess, playing with people's lives. The elites, moving pieces on the chessboard, not caring, not taking really much accountability in the lives of the people that they're representing, and it shows. So it's disappointing, but we're gonna figure out a way to just keep pushing our message and to hopefully just get enough people on board with understanding that the goal has to be us living in harmony and striving for that greater peace. I really do believe that has to be the goal for us, to live in harmony. If not, like what are we doing? If not, are we truly serving God for all the religious folk? If our ultimate goal is for not all of his kids to live in harmony, to live peacefully, and to strive for that greater peace. So I'll leave y'all with that. I got to jump on this meeting real quick. And I almost forgot. My apologies. I allowed my emotional triggers to get the best of me, perhaps, but just being transparent with y'all. But I almost forgot to talk about the main thing when it comes to Trump and Netanyahu, which is when Trump puts out, they're going to disarm, talking about Hamas, they're going to disarm. And if not, then we'll disarm them. You just threaten them, bro. And you got all of us involved. And this is exactly what people are talking about when we say we don't want to get involved in Israeli affairs. We don't want to back them in the genocide that they're committing. We don't want to participate. We don't want our soldiers to be dying again and to be getting involved. And we don't want our soldiers killing. Let's be very clear. We don't want our soldiers dying or killing. A lot of people act as if it's not a big deal if we just go over there and kill because a lot of our soldiers didn't die. No, that just ask a soldier how much trauma that puts on them. Look at some of these videos, the PTSD that they suffer from. So it's both. But we do not want our soldiers having to get involved in a conflict that came about from us supporting Israel in their fight, whatever they want to call it, as they go against Palestine, as they try to go against Iran, as they try to create this greater Israel, as they try to follow through with this clean break memo, whatever it is that they're looking to do. We just don't want to support it. And Trump, when he says certain things like that, where he just may be up there grandstanding or doing whatever he is, just talking his ish, bro, you're putting American lives at risk. And you can say, oh, well, he's posturing in this way to make sure that they actually follow through with the peace deal. I don't know. I guess you could say that. I would disagree. And I would actually think that that's almost what we do with October 7th, which we act as if the war just started October 7th. That's acting as if this argument with us being involved with Israel just starts at that point. where it's like, oh, well, he's just posturing, so therefore they'll follow through with the deal. We shouldn't have been involved long before. We shouldn't have been financing this long before, because then we wouldn't be in this situation, and where now we have to back them as we step in and try to separate the two, right? It's like we fueled them to get them to fight. We're paying to have the fight, right? To promote it, to whatever it is, right? And now we're forced to step in and separate the two. We're forced to, hey, Israel, you gotta, stop. Well, we know we gave you the weapons. We know we gave you the money. You gotta stop now. Now we're forced to intervene and play this role, and to where now Trump feels the need to threaten Hamas if they don't follow through on the peace deal. But notice he didn't have that same energy towards Israel, which is kind of funny, because if we're looking at who violated the ceasefire before, when Donald Trump was cursing on the White House lawn, seemed like he was a little bit more upset at Bibi Netanyahu and Israel than he was with Iran. But guess that's just the way it goes. I guess that's just the way it goes. All right. On that note, I actually am done. So I'll let y'all go. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, and of course, leave a comment. Let me know. Y'all know we all have blind spots. I have blind spots, and I have bias. And I think some of them y'all may have seen play out today with me getting emotionally triggered with the first topic. I just don't like when people always try to, give credibility to their racism by always throwing Black people in the mix. Whatever. It is what it is. Y'all saw it again. But yeah, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and let us know how we're doing. And I'll see you on the next video.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.